Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and this video is going to show the fastest cars in each raceable class in terms of lap time. As always, the position counter is in the top left with the best lap time the vehicle achieved in the top right, and where applicable there will be other options for each class in the bottom left. Also, as the title says, this is cars only, there's no bikes, planes or anything else here. This video only focuses on track performance, so if you're interested in top speed where braking, cornering and acceleration aren't relevant, check the link in the description for the top speed testing series. And if you want to know more information about this testing, including the extent to which it's accurate and how useful it is for you personally, have a read of the full description as everything that you need is in there. This video lists all vehicles and is correct as of the Los Santos Tuners update. For any vehicles added after that or other classes of cars, check the playlist linked in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get testing results of any new cars a little bit early. So we've had the first three classes: utility, which the Saddler still reigns supreme there. We've got vans, where the Rumpo Custom just to say beats the Gang Burrito, but both of them are usable. And then the club, which is absolutely dominant in compacts. Same story for the Previan here in 10th place, which is the number one coupe now. That is dominant over there. The Zion can compete in some instances, but not really. And in 9th place, we've got the Dominator ASP for the muscle class, which actually has exactly the same lap time as the Previan, but gets the position because it has a higher top speed. But it makes it interesting that the muscle class and the coupes class have cars at the very top of their classes that get exactly the same performance, which is kind of crazy, at least in terms of lap time. So 8th place, we've got the Shafter V12 for the sedans class, and we do have another option there with the Tailgater S, which is only 0.2 of a second behind the Shafter V12, but in most situations you're going to want to use it. Even though it's in the sports class, technically the Shafter V12, it can be used in sports sedan races. The Toros in 7th place for SUVs, 104.8. It's kind of crazy how quickly we've gotten to really good levels of lap time. A 104.8, 105s for the Shafter, for example. All of the classes really since the club are getting mid-sport car levels of lap time, and they're just, going across multiple classes. The Turismo Classic is the best for the Sports Classics class, in 6th place overall here with a 104.599, and then you've got a few other options with, for example, the Cheetah Classic, and then the Rapid GT and the Retinue, which come into their own in some instances. And then in 5th place for the top 5 of all the classes, unfortunately it's a motorcycle, because it's the off-road class, and the BF400, even though it's in the motorcycles class, it can be used in off-road races, and it dominates. It's almost 1.2 seconds quicker than the Vagrant, but the reason that I've put the Vagrant and the Camacho in there, despite them being so far behind, is because it does depend on the kind of race you're doing, and off-road races can be very variable on which one is going to be the best. 4th place here, we've got a sort of sub-class, which is obviously very new with the Tuners class. Now that isn't a full-fledged class. The Sultan RS Classic is in sports, for example. The Vector, the Calico, the Growler, which are all also viable vehicles for tuner races, are all in the sports class. But they're also tuner vehicles as well, and you can set races to the tuner class. And if you do, these are the 4 vehicles that you're going to want to use, and ultimately all of them are pretty competitive depending on the track. Now the top 3, and these are the only 3 classes that have their top cars get lap times that are below the 1 minute barrier, starting with the Itali GTO with a 59.727 second lap, which is absolutely crazy. That's exactly the same lap time as the RE7B in the Supers class. It's easily the number 1 for the sports class, but keep in mind that it does get all of its speed from bumps and boosts on the road, from curb boosting. Things like the Pariah, which have natural good speed, even though it's a second behind it on this lap, there will be some tracks where the other cars will come into their own, so that's why I've left them there again, even though they're about a second off the pace. For the Supers class, which is the second fastest class, we've got the Emirates with a 58.291. It's about 0.2 of a second quicker than the Krieger, and then there's other options of the Wagner, the S80 and the Thrax, which are all just under a second per lap behind, so you can use them, but a second per lap is pretty substantial, especially at this kind of speed when we're getting to the 58-second levels of lap time. And 58 seconds is absolutely crazy, you know, those are incredible lap times. Back when we had the Cyrus, T20s and Tono that were all getting sort of 1 minute 1 lap times, the idea that we'd ever get something with a 58-second lap or even a sub 1 minute was absolutely insane. But now we have something that decimates even that with the quickest class in the game. Of course, it's the new open wheels class, relatively new anyway. It's the only full-fledged new class to be ever added. For example, tuners is just used for racers, whereas open wheel is its own class, and these cars aren't anywhere else in any other classes. And the BR8 is the quickest of the 4 open wheel cars that we have, and the reason that there's no other options down there is because it's so dominant. It's a good 2 seconds per lap quicker than all of the other open wheel cars, depending on the setup, because the front and rear wings on open wheel cars do change the performance of the vehicles depending on cornering speeds and top speeds. You can check out the original open wheels testing video for that. It explains it all in great detail. But ultimately the BR8 is the quickest car around the track, full stop. A sub 55-second lap is absolutely crazy. It's quicker than, you know, regular bikes, it's quicker than any other car, it's quicker than most boost vehicles and vigilantes and all that kind of crazy stuff. It's just crazy around the corners. Now, I did say at the start that we'd be having no bikes, but I thought I would include a little bonus with the Shitaro, obviously the #1 motorcycle, but you've got the Hakucho drag there, which is less than half the price and it's only a 1/10 of a second behind, and it has a higher top speed than the Shitaro as well, so you can choose which one you want there, but I would recommend the Hakucho drag most of the time, unless it's something very corner heavy. And obviously a testing video wouldn't be complete without a comparison, and I figured it made sense to do a comparison between the fastest in the fastest class and the fastest in the second fastest class. And to be fair, the Emirates does pretty well against the BR8 in the first half of the lap, because there aren't that many tight corners that the BR8 can really use that sort of downforce and high cornering grip that it has. And also, open wheel cars are notorious for being bad at top speed, so the Emirates is able to pull away even at the very first part of the lap just because it has a higher top speed. But as we get into the second half of the lap, where the corners get a little bit tighter and the BR8 is able to maximize its speed around those corners, it does pull away significantly from the Emirates. And to have a class where the #1 vehicle is a good 3 seconds per lap quicker than even the fastest supercar, you know, it's crazy. So open wheelers, they're not great for top speed, but if you get the corners right with them, they absolutely fly. And when you're comparing it against the fastest car in the utility vehicles class, it's crazy the difference. Now, you know, these are 2 vehicles, these are 2 separate classes in the game that you can race. These are the fastest cars in their classes. Granted, the utility vehicles class doesn't have all that much. The Slam Truck was the sort of newest addition to that, and that's about 10 seconds per lap off the pace of the Sadler. But these are the fastest in their classes, and to be honest, it's nice to see a bit of variety with that. You know, yes, it's over a 25-second per lap difference, but what we've seen through the course of this video in comparison to, you know, previous years is that it seems like all the cars are just becoming homogenized and the same. You've got SUVs getting the same lap times and better lap times as muscle cars and coupes and sedans. You've got sports cars getting lap times of supercars. It's just such a mess and such a mix that really the only unique classes these days that set themselves apart is open wheel at the top, and then vans and utility further down below. Even compacts with the club getting a 1 minute 6 lap time. You know, the idea that a compact car gets a 1 minute 6 lap time is ridiculous, to be honest. That's mid sports car levels of lap time, and the same goes for all the other classes. So the fact that all classes are kind of just mixed in getting the same sort of lap time, it's nice that we've still got utility and to a certain extent vans as well that are just so different. And yeah, the Sadler is the last of the original vanilla GTA cars that is still the top of its class. It's the only one that's left, because as we've seen in this video, all of the other classes are now dominated by DLC cars. So yeah, hopefully this has been helpful, but for now that's pretty much it. Consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want testing results early, and remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed or found it helpful, and subscribe for more. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.